If you answer yes, have fun. Enjoy the internet for what it's worth. If you pause for 1 second, back away from the computer and figure out why you're pausing.
All right, speaking of tips like that, you talk about not sharing passwords. What's the whole idea behind that?
The problem with sharing, well, the only people that kids should share passwords with is their parents. When you share a password with your best friends fight. And in the middle of a fight, they could go on as you, say some things they normally wouldn't say, post some comments as you. Oh. And what happens in a couple days when you make up, you got to look to your friend and say, you know what, I made a mistake and I got a permanent record of something that I did as you.
Oh my
Passwords
gosh.
shouldn't be shared with their best friends. It should be shared with their parents, and
that's frightening. Now you also mentioned for kids making sure that your online buddies are really your friends and not strangers. Well, how do you do that?
One safe rule is this. We'll take instant message, for example.
Okay.
If you have 50 people on your instant messaging buddy list, you should sit down and look at the screen name, and you should immediately be able to say first and last name of that person. Because when they're on an instant messaging buddy list, it's the screen name they create. It could be anything. So if you look at that screen name and you say, okay, that's so-and-so from my school, okay, you're not communicating with strangers. You know the person. They're a friend. If you look at it and say, where do I know this person from? That's where the kids should stop communicating and get that person off their buddy list.
Okay. And is there something that is, I don't know, in terms of the manners or the decorum of these social networking sites? Is there a whole rule about that?
Well, you would hope there's decorum, but there's not, because what happens is people will say things that they normally wouldn't say in real life because they're sitting in front of a computer monitor. Kids will try to act a little bit older than they are. They will say things a little bit more aggressively than they normally would face-to-face. We're seeing that's where the cyberbullying is such a big concern, because people are saying and doing things they would never do to someone's face.
Well, you know, we hear all the time, you can't convey emotion in an email. And while email is wonderful, the challenge is that you can say something that you're meaning to be humorous, but if the other person reading on the receiving end is only reading the words, and they're not necessarily getting the emotion, so we come up with these little caricatures and smiley faces. Yep. And whatever to try to help mitigate that. But what you're talking about takes that to a whole nother level.
Absolutely. I'm a parent, and if I look at my daughter's email and I look at it and I perceive it to be a threat or perceive it to be harassment, that's what it is, because that's the way I read it. If their intent was to make it as a joke, well, that joke didn't come across. And as a parent, now I'm reading my child's email saying they were just threatened and harassed.
So you read your child's email?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You recommend that?
I recommend it. That's going to be a case-by-case, and it's going to be an age group. Will I read my 5th grade's email, my daughter's email? Yes. Will I read my freshman son email? He's a little bit older. He's got a little bit more freedom when it comes to email. Do I have parental controls on every computer in my house? Absolutely. Parental controls allow me to block the sites that I don't want them to go to. It allows me to monitor what they're doing. If they have friends over and their friends try to be sneaky and get around my parental controls, I get an email alert that said, this computer just tried to do this.
Wow, Scott.
Well,
wow.
I see,
yeah.
and I know I take it to an extreme, and my kids know I take it to an extreme, but I haven't seen the middle. I've seen the worst of what could happen.
That's a good point.
So I want to make sure it's not going to happen to my kids. And people always ask, how do I stay motivated talking to predators and dealing with child pornography? And I always have a picture of my kids right next to the computer, and I tell myself it's not going to happen to them. And then it goes from there. So at my house, the computers are locked down. Extreme arguments, yeah.
Yeah, I bet there have been a couple of times when you've been on the receiving end of your old-fashioned, or you're too strict, or you're something.
When it comes to the internet, we've had some debates about that, but that's okay, and that's.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always explaining to them why I do what I do. It's not just, well, I don't want you doing that. I explain to my kids, the reason this site is blocked is because it's mature content. It's possibly pornography. It's something you shouldn't be seeing at your eyes. I never lie to them. I always tell them the truth why it's happening.
Okay. What about parents? Because I know you talk to parents also.
I do.
Now, are they shocked and surprised? Are they, Well, what is their reaction when you point out the level of danger through the computer?
The first comment I always make to my parents' groups is I do not want you going home and smashing your computer, because I know what I'm about to tell them is going to make them feel that way.
Yeah.
My thing I always tell the parents is you have to heighten your awareness on safety, and you have to learn your computer a little bit. They're a little, at first they think, okay, I checked my email and I've read a couple of emails. When I show them what social networking sites can do, what chat rooms can do, what instant messaging can lead to, it's a whole new ballgame. And I'm hoping they walk away saying, I've got to take a closer look at what I'm doing and what I'm allowing my kids to do. I hope.
Okay. You have tips. You have tips for parents. You have some really concrete tips for parents that you have on your website. And one of the ones that I thought, oh, it's so basic, never occurred to me. The idea of keeping the computer in a room where everybody sees it.
That was one of the first rules that I learned when it came to internet safety from other people that taught me. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I thought that was a very basic rule, but people still aren't doing that. And it's something that should happen. It's a way to protect both the kid and the child. If the kid does something, let's say they type in a website and they accidentally misspell it and they go to a site they don't belong.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity to go, Mom, Dad, I did not do this on purpose. Here, look at this. Where if they type in that same site and they're in their bedroom and Mom or Dad walk in at that moment, now the child's got to defend themselves and say, it was an accident, I promise. Well, there's going to be a lack of trust there at that point.
Yeah.
Common area, the kids just got to go, I didn't do it.
That's
and it allows it allows the parents to not spy, but an occasional glance over there or see what the kids are doing.
You mentioned also limiting the amount of time a child is allowed to be on the internet. Oh, I bet that makes you real popular.
Good luck with that. There is a thing called Outdoors. I always keep telling the kids, it's outdoors. Go check it out. It's really cool.
It's a really cool place, yes.
Yeah, limiting the time, because the more time you're on there, the more things could happen.
You also have something called Sit and Learn. You say when your child is online, pull up a chair and ask them to teach you something.
I love this approach. There's no announcement. You don't tell the kids, hey, I'm going to come in a little while to teach me something on the computer. When they're there, don't say a word. Grab a chair, sit down, and say, teach me something. And you will instantly know your kid's reaction. If they are doing something they shouldn't be doing, or if they are involved in something that's against your house rules, we know our kids better than anybody. You'll get that gut feeling. If there's not doing anything wrong, tell them to teach you something. Learn from them.
Parental controls software, you spoke about that a moment ago, but that will allow parents to block sites or block...
It blocks sites, it monitors what the kids are doing, and there's several ones out there that parents can pick and choose how strict they want to be. It can be a little lenient, and while you earn your trust, if you violate the trust, you can shut it down that nothing is on there. I highly recommend every computer with kids in the house have parental controls on it. And what parents can do is they can just do any kind of web search, Google, Yahoo, and just say parental controls. And there'll be side-by-side comparisons of several programs that are out there. The parents can pick and choose what they want to do with it. They go from just generic blocking to getting instant email notifications if something is wrong.
Well, Scott, I want to mention, too, here that, we're talking with Scott Driscoll, and he teaches these classes on internet cyber safety. But you and my friend and fellow crew member here on Full Bloom are writing a book about internet safety. I know you're not finished yet. It's got some time to go, and so I'll have you back on the show with Laurie to talk about that. But this book is all about not only teaching kids, but teaching parents, and a very, very valuable resource. Scott, did it ever occur to you when all of this started that with the cyber safety that it would become so critical the way it is today?
Absolutely not. If you asked me when I started my law enforcement career, I'd be surfing the web and taking apart computers or teaching kids how to be safe on the internet. Never would have thought of that.
Well, the internet is here to stay, and I'm very, very glad that although the dangers are out there, there are people like you who are helping us combat them, and I thank you very much for sharing this information here on the show tonight. We'll have you back, have you with Laurie, and talk about the book next time.
My pleasure.
And for those of you in the viewing audience, I say this every week, I mean it sincerely, I do know the value of time. And thank you for once again sharing an evening with me. Bye-bye.